Harry's Wife, Part 101.64, Fight the Conspiracy. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, and welcome to a further examination of the behaviours of Harry's wife to enable you to understand more about narcissism. As I have explained in parts passim, the Queen's funeral and events surrounding it made life very difficult for Harry's wife. Accordingly, as a consequence of the turbulent time that she has experienced, her narcissism has caused her to galvanize those legions of supporters that still exist, and those, of course, that are swayed by the presentation of a greenback or two to enable them to write PR pieces. Such is the extent to which she has been rattled, whereby she showed apparent upset for an institution that she roundly despises, underlining her hypocrisy. She has had to engage in the repeated instances through journalistic pieces of attacking what I have called the shopping list. Essentially, the criticisms that she faced in terms of holding on to the bouquet, the depth of her curtsy, the utilisation of the grip of doom, the frosty behaviours after the appearance at St. George's Chapel, the swipe that came from the Archbishop of Canterbury, and other matters besides, the suggestion of a plant in the crowd, and more, whereby it's been necessary for her narcissism to nullify those ongoing threats to control by doing so through proxy, by causing certain pieces to be written, and indeed one that I referred to, which was all about playing the race card, almost seemed as if it had been written by herself under the pen name of Raven Smith. This is being done to attack the shopping list. This is interesting. A more evolved narcissist would pay very little attention to these matters. A more evolved narcissist, of course, would not have made some of the slip-ups and gaffes that she has done. Nevertheless, let us assume they had taken place, or that the stance of this particular more evolved narcissist, a greater, possibly even an upper mid-ranger, had taken certain steps which were unpopular or unfavourable, and perhaps had criticised the royal family, and done so in a more constructive fashion based upon their evidence, and then returns to the United Kingdom to attend the funeral and faces round accusations of being a hypocrite. In such instances, the greater would probably just laugh about it and move on, busying themselves about the next act of machination and manipulation on a Machiavellian scale. However, Harry's wife, she doesn't have that ability, and instead it really does get to her, these repeated criticisms, and therefore her style of narcissism is more micromanaging, that she has to go back, and rather than just say, yeah, well, there we are, the little people would think that way. Now, I've got a meeting with Elon Musk, and how am I going to tickle his balls to ensure that he jumps into bed with me in terms of a new business deal? The fact is, Harry's wife can't let certain things go because they keep popping up in her own newsfeed, if you will. Her PR team, her advisors, members of her coterie will make mention. They were awful to you, Harry's wife. You ought to do something about it. Typical racist Brits with their nasty ways. You need to fight back. So these individuals who are invested in Harry's wife, in a variety of different ways, remind her of the threats to control that have occurred, and therefore, rather than just shrug it off and move forward with some new fantastic project that she's involved in, the fact is she has nothing really to do. And therefore, the reminder of these facts preys large on her mind. I've witnessed certain graters, for instance, that are involved in litigation and all of a sudden they drop it. Why? They've got a bigger and better deal that they want to deal with. So they're no longer bothered about the litigation. They get rid of the threat posed by it by drawing up an agreement, discontinuing even the proceedings and paying costs because they can afford to do so. They walk away from it because they've got a much bigger matter to deal with, more money to be made elsewhere, more people to manipulate elsewhere. That can go now. I'm about bigger things. Harry's wife doesn't have that. She doesn't have, if you will, the distraction, like Greta has, of major projects, because she is the Duchess of Industrial Beige, and instead she becomes preoccupied with what has gone on because it keeps getting brought up. And therefore, this shopping list of transgressions needs to repeatedly be addressed. And we have another example of this in The Insider, with an article written by Mara Layton. The headline reads, "Wild conspiracy theories are circulating online about Harry's wife in the wake of the Queen's death." As news of the Queen's death has drawn Harry's wife and Prince Harry back to Windsor Castle, where they were married in May 2018, so too has their presence revived misinformation and conspiracies targeting Harry's wife. Conspiracies about Harry's wife wearing a microphone for an upcoming Netflix special, being purposefully blocked by a candle in a funeral broadcast, and copying Princess Diana's outfits, aided by old imagery, have circulated on social media. Now, several points. Those are people's views based upon what they've seen, and if they wish to articulate those views, then, of course, they may do so. Furthermore, in such instances, it shows that Harry's wife is rattled by these matters because they amount to threats to control. A different type of narcissist would just laugh off the suggestion that her view was purposely blocked by a candle, but she can't. Accordingly, this is why we get such pieces. The article continues, as can be the case with engagement-driven platforms like Twitter and TikTok, relatively few accounts can make a disproportionately huge impact. Conspiracy 1. Harry's wife copied her funeral attire from one of Princess Diana's outfits. A TikTok viewed 22.7 million times implied that Harry's wife copied an outfit of Princess Diana's for the Queen's funeral. In it, a slideshow of the royal family dressed in black plays under the text, "Everyone else at the Queen's funeral," and cuts to Harry's wife showing up dressing as Diana, on top of photos of Harry's wife and Diana in strikingly similar outfits. But as some commenters pointed out, the TikTok was posted before the Queen's funeral took place and used images from Remembrance Day in 2019. But TikTok's algorithm complicates a time-based fact-check. Its mysterious For You page isn't chronological, meaning many users will serve the video after the funeral without realizing that it was posted before the event occurred. By design, time barely exists on TikTok. Timestamps aren't shown in the FYP scroll. You must go to a creator's profile page to find out when a TikTok was made. That leads to plenty of confusion over timelines. So, in effect, though, what this article is telling us is that somebody didn't purposely put this video out, but people may well have been misled by the appearance of an old video because of TikTok's algorithm. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's simply people reacting to information that's been put before them. Conspiracy 2. The royal family conspired to purposefully block, or rather to block purposefully, Harry's wife during the live broadcast with a candle. On Twitter and TikTok, a conspiracy about the royal family purposefully blocking Harry's wife's face with a candle during the funeral broadcast has circulated. Alternatively discussed by fans of Harry's wife who decry the perceived snub and trolls who express finding it funny and justified. It's interesting, isn't it, that because you find it amusing that somebody you dislike has their face obscured by a candle, you are automatically labelled a troll, but those that decry the perceived snub are viewed as supporters. Quite simply, it might be that someone's making an observation. Why not call them observers? Because that's what they're doing. They're observing something that happened and offering an opinion on it. That, to my mind, doesn't equate to trolling. Nevertheless, of course, this individual has to paint it as that because it's akin to the knee-jerk reaction that wherever you criticise Harry's wife, no matter how justified or merited, or how objectively done, you are automatically labelled hater, racist, and here, troll. As I've mentioned before, I see it occasionally in the comments from idiots who don't look at the evidence, and it's a knee-jerk reaction. It's utterly boring, tedious, and they have the intellectual forensic ability of a blancmange. If I was so minded If I was to debate with those individuals on a stage, I'd have them reduced to a fit of frustrated tears, as with my rapier-like intelligence, I would take them apart with the evidence. As it is, I've got much better things to do than deal with dense blancmanges. Returning to the article, however, the TikToks featuring this perceived slight only show a few seconds of footage from the live-streamed event, which was streamed by major news outlets such as the BBC. When I watched the funeral live, I noticed that you couldn't see Harry's wife at the committal ceremony with her face obstructed, one Twitter user wrote. Remember, royal family plans and executes out every single detail with precision. That candle didn't need to be there, and the camera angle was no accident. Thanks so much, Candle. You knew the assignment, wrote another TikTok user. Rather than debating whether it's actually accurate that the placement of the cameras and the candle is something that would have been undertaken beforehand with military precision, and therefore that it actually was done deliberately, it automatically, by this article, gets labelled as a conspiracy. Conspiracy 3. Harry's wife was wearing a microphone for her upcoming Netflix show. Dozens of TikTok and Twitter users speculated that creases in Harry's wife's dress indicated that she was wearing a microphone to record for a rumoured Netflix reality TV show while paying tribute to the Queen. Videos discussing the conspiracy have garnered millions of views on the platform. One Twitter user wrote, "Is Harry's wife wearing a mic to use the Queen's death for her Netflix reality show?" Angela Levin, the author of the Camilla Parker Bowles biography, Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, was called out during a Talk TV broadcast for retweeting a now-deleted tweet calling Harry's wife a spy. Again, all this does is highlight that people were making the observations that she might be wearing a microphone. What it doesn't do is provide any evidence that demonstrates that that was incorrect by saying that square lump that was on her hip was actually this. Instead, it just leaves it hanging in the wind. And where you leave matters hanging in the wind, people are going to speculate. Also, of course, it ignores this. She's a narcissist, and therefore she acts with a sense of entitlement, a lack of accountability for her behaviours. She has no emotional empathy, and it is not beyond the wit of such an individual to be wired up. It doesn't mean because she is a narcissist that automatically means that she will be wearing a microphone, but what it does mean is that there is a possibility that that's the case. And if you ally that possibility with the suggestion of a rather unusual shape on her clothing, and it isn't somebody wearing a belt on the fucking inside, that's nonsense, then that raises questions. Here we have somebody who we know that acts with self-interest, doesn't recognise boundaries, doesn't care about other people, although she thinks she does, and there are some rather strange lumps on her clothing. Is it a mic pack? It might be. As I explained in my video, we don't have any definitive proof that it is, but also there is a possibility that it is. And of course, she doesn't provide any evidence to say, no, actually, this is where I keep my Tic Tacs, to keep my breath minty fresh during engagements. No. Instead, it's left hanging in the wind. The article continues. New conspiracies, old online abuse. Harry's wife became a fixation for trolls and a British tabloid mainstay, and faced a barrage of racist and sexist online harassment, if you say so, once her relationship with Prince Harry became public in 2016. 4 years after going public, the couple stunned Britons by announcing that they would step back as senior members of the British royal family in 2020, decamping to the United States. In the fall of 2020, Harry's wife described the abuse as almost unsurvivable. Pity play, in an appearance on the mental health podcast Teenager Therapy. A year later, in 2021, formal vindication came when Harry's wife won a lawsuit against the Mail on Sunday tabloid, and a Twitter analytics service found that Harry's wife and Harry were in fact targeted with coordinated harassment that year. Of course, that's what that report found, but we all know that that report could be shredded by anybody with a brain, and therefore it's very easy to pluck that. And this is the interesting thing. This article is engaging in the very behaviours that it's criticising by saying that people have relied upon an old video to say that she was wearing the same outfit at the funeral as Princess Diana. This article is relying upon a report which did not explain its methodology, did not explain the basis on it was commissioned, had no actual objective methodology of defining what amounts to hatred, compiled by somebody who we know has a very shady past and is at the moment on the receipt of a lawsuit, An individual who's been accused of being an abuser by his own daughter, an individual who appears to have failed to disclose to the relevant individuals about the fact that he had certain companies when he made an application for bankruptcy, and so on and so forth. The provenance of such a report is highly questionable. Leaving aside, of course, the shady nature of its author, the methodology of it is something that anybody who would read it would go, what does that mean? On what basis is that being compiled? Where are the comparisons? It's worth jack shit. And a competent barrister would shred that under cross-examination in court. But of course, this report wants to demonstrate that Harry's wife is the victim, so it picks and chooses, engaging in the very behaviour that this author of this article criticises other people to do. The problem with articles like this is that, although it seeks to nullify the threat to control, it doesn't. It has the Barbara Streisand effect. It draws attention to these conspiracies or supposed conspiracies and cause people actually to think, there is something in that actually. Thanks for putting me onto it. So it actually does more damage than good. But that's the collateral consequence of the behaviour of Harry's wife, not thinking ahead. Rather than thinking, damn them, I'll get on with something else. People will always tittle-tattle about you. No, her narcissism screams at her. Set them straight. They're all liars. They're all haters. They're all racist. You must now go and do something about it. And in so doing, in commissioning this article, which is wishy-washy to put it politely, it does more harm than good. So we have another example of Harry's wife needing to nullify the threats to control arising from the shopping list associated with the funeral, and it demonstrates the collateral consequences of how such an article actually does more harm than good, and also the hypocrisy of engaging in the very behaviour that the article itself criticises. An excellent lesson in learning more about narcissism. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.